The forest stood still, basking in the warm glow of the setting sun. The only sound was the crunch of leaves beneath the boots of two brothers, Jake and Mark. They were seasoned hunters, their rifles slung over their shoulders, their breaths puffed out in the cooling air, visible wisps against the golden backdrop. Laughter echoed softly through the trees, a testament to their bond, their shared love for the hunt. Jake, the elder, stopped, his eyes scanning the woods. He raised a hand, signaling for Mark to halt. At first it was a mere speck against the vast canvas of the twilight sky. Then three specks, dancing and weaving in an aerial display unlike anything they had ever witnessed. They moved with incredible speed, leaving streaks of light in their wake. The brothers watched, mesmerized, as the objects drew closer. Their forms became clearer. Sleek metallic shapes, spitting fire and smoke. This was no ordinary air show. This was war. One of the crafts, trailing smoke and fire, veered sharply, clipping the wing of another. The impact sent shards of metal raining down through the atmosphere. The brothers hit the ground, shielding their heads as debris whizzed past them. As quickly as it had begun, the battle was over. The remaining crafts, both badly damaged, spiraled downwards, disappearing behind the tree line in the distance. Silence descended once more, heavier now, filled with the echo of destruction. Jake and Mark exchanged a look, a mixture of awe and fear etched on their faces. The forest floor grew darker as the brothers ventured deeper, following the trail of broken trees and smoldering earth left in the wake of the fallen craft. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of burnt metal and something else, something alien and unsettling. Every crackle of a twig, every rustle in the undergrowth sent shivers down their spines. They moved cautiously, rifles held at the ready, their senses on high alert. Jake, ever the protector, stayed a step ahead, his eyes scanning their surroundings. The forest, once familiar and comforting, now felt like a foreign and hostile territory. They were hunters in their element, yet they felt like prey. Through the trees, a gleam of silver caught Jake's eye. He held up a fist, signaling Mark to stop. Together they crept forward, their boots sinking into the soft earth. As they drew closer, the gleaming object resolved itself into the mangled remains of the downed spacecraft. It lay half-buried in the earth, its once sleek surface now torn and dented. Smoke rose from a gaping hole in its side, and strange, whirring noises emanated from within. The brothers exchanged a nervous glance. They were hunters, not soldiers, not explorers. What they were witnessing was beyond their comprehension, yet they couldn't tear their eyes away. As they approached the downed craft, a section of the hull creaked open, groaning like a wounded beast. The whirring intensified, accompanied by a high-pitched squeal that set their teeth on edge. Jake gripped his rifle tighter, his finger hovering near the trigger. They had come this far, curiosity overriding their fear. Now there was no turning back.
From the depths of the ship, a shape began to emerge. It moved slowly at first, hesitantly, as if testing the air outside. The brothers watched, their hearts pounding in their chests, as the creature pulled itself fully into view. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a nightmare brought to life. Its skin was a sickly green covered in pustules and lesions. Its limbs were long and gangly, ending in vicious-looking claws. Its head was small and misshapen, dominated by a pair of huge insect-like eyes that glowed with an eerie red light. The creature let out a roar, a guttural sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the forest. Terror lent speed to their feet. Jake and Mark didn't hesitate. They turned and ran, their rifles forgotten, their only thought to escape the horror that had been unleashed from the sky.
Branches whipped at their faces, tore at their clothes. The forest floor became a blur beneath their pounding feet. Adrenaline surged through their veins, fueled by primal fear. Behind them, the roar of the creature echoed through the trees, urging them onward. They didn't dare look back, didn't dare slow down. The image of the creature, its grotesque form and those glowing eyes, seared into their minds. They ran blindly, their lungs burning, their legs screaming for respite. But the fear, the overwhelming fear, kept them moving. The forest grew darker, the last vestiges of daylight fading behind the dense canopy. The air grew thick with the stench of the creature, a musky, putrid odor that sent waves of nausea through them. They stumbled and fell, scrambling back to their feet, their hands scraped raw against the rough bark. How long had they been running? Minutes? Hours? Time had lost all meaning. There was only the relentless pounding of their hearts, the rasping of their breath, and the ever-present threat that lurked behind them. They were hunters, used to the dangers of the forest, but this was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Just when their strength began to fail, when the darkness threatened to consume them, a light appeared through the trees. It was a soft, ethereal glow, like moonlight on snow, and it seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly rhythm. Hope, fragile yet insistent, flickered within them. With renewed determination, they surged forward, drawn to the light as moths to a flame. As they drew closer, the trees began to thin, revealing a clearing bathed in the unearthly glow. In the center of the clearing lay another craft, its smooth, silver hull gleaming under the strange light. This craft, unlike the first, appeared undamaged, almost pristine. Figures moved around the craft, tall and slender, their silhouettes outlined against the radiant glow. They moved with an eerie grace, their limbs flowing like smoke in a gentle breeze. As the brothers stumbled into the clearing, the figures turned towards them, their faces hidden in the shadows. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The brothers, battered and breathless, stood frozen in the face of the unknown. The figures remained motionless, their silence amplified in the wake of the brothers' frantic flight. The only sound was the soft whirring emanating from the alien craft, a low hum that seemed to vibrate deep within their bones. Then, as if on cue, one of the figures stepped forward, emerging from the shadows into the light. The sight that greeted the brothers took their breath away. It was a woman, if woman it could be called. Her beauty was beyond anything they had ever seen, ethereal, almost unearthly. Her skin was like alabaster, smooth and flawless, radiating a soft inner light. Her hair, a cascade of silver, flowed down her back like a waterfall of moonlight. But it was her eyes that held them captive, eyes of the clearest blue, filled with a depth of wisdom and compassion that seemed to pierce through their very souls.
She spoke, her voice a melodic whisper that seemed to weave its way into their minds, calming their fear, soothing their pain. Her words were strange, alien, yet somehow they understood. She spoke of peace, of sanctuary, of a safe haven from the horrors they had endured.
One by one, the other figures stepped forward, each as breathtakingly beautiful as the first. Men and women, their features perfect, their movements fluid, surrounded the brothers, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. They were like angels descended from heaven, offering solace and salvation. And in that moment, Jake and Mark, exhausted and terrified, clung to their words as a drowning man clings to a lifeline. With gestures of kindness, the beautiful beings guided them towards the open hatch of the spacecraft. The brothers hesitated, their instincts screaming at them to run, to flee back into the darkness. But the allure of safety, of escaping the nightmare that pursued them, proved too strong to resist. As they stepped across the threshold, the interior of the craft shimmered and shifted around them. Gone were the familiar sights and smells of the forest, replaced by a cool, sterile environment that hummed with an energy they couldn't comprehend. The air was filled with a strange, sweet aroma that both intrigued and unsettled them. Their beautiful rescuers led them down a narrow corridor, their footsteps silent on the smooth, metallic floor. The walls seemed to pulsate with light, shifting patterns that made their heads spin. Jake and Mark exchanged a nervous glance. They were safe for now, but a nagging sense of unease clung to them, a feeling that they had traded one danger for another. As they walked, Jake couldn't shake the image of the monstrous creature from his mind. It had terrified him, yes, but even in his fear, he had sensed a desperate urgency in its actions, a frantic need to warn them. Had they misinterpreted its intentions? Had they stumbled into a trap, lured by beauty and promises of safety? The thought sent a chill down his spine, a premonition of darkness yet to come. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in a dizzying display of swirling lights. Strange symbols, glowing with an internal luminescence, adorned the smooth, curved walls. The air thrummed with an unseen energy, a silent symphony of power that sent shivers down their spines. In the center of the chamber, a circular platform pulsed with a soft, white light. The beautiful beings, their movements fluid and graceful, guided Jake and Mark towards the platform, their touch strangely cold, yet reassuring. Confusion and exhaustion warred within the brothers, their perceptions blurred by the alien wonders surrounding them. As they stepped onto the platform, a low hum resonated through the chamber, the air thickening around them. The strange symbols on the walls flared, bathing the chamber in a blinding white light. Jake and Mark squeezed their eyes shut, their bodies tense with apprehension. What were these beings doing? Were they being helped? Or were they simply cattle being herded towards an unknown fate?
The light faded as quickly as it had come, leaving behind an eerie silence. When they dared to open their eyes, they found themselves surrounded by the beautiful beings, their expressions unreadable in the strange, ambient light of the chamber. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Jake's exhaustion. He clutched his rifle tighter, a futile attempt to find comfort in the familiar weight of the weapon.
A table materialized before them, seemingly from thin air, its surface gleaming like polished obsidian. The beautiful beings gestured for them to be seated, their movements fluid and elegant. As they hesitantly took their places, platters laden with food appeared on the table, an array of exotic fruits and delicacies, unlike anything they had ever seen before. The aromas that wafted from the dishes were intoxicating, a blend of sweet and savory scents that tickled their nostrils and awakened their appetites. Despite their fear, hunger gnawed at their bellies, a primal urge amplified by the exhaustion and stress of the ordeal. The beautiful beings smiled, their eyes twinkling with an almost predatory amusement, urging them to partake in the feast.
What is this place?
Jake hesitated, a growing sense of unease twisting in his gut. It was all too perfect, too orchestrated. The luxurious surroundings, the intoxicating food, the overwhelming beauty of their hosts. It felt like a carefully constructed illusion, a spider web designed to lure them into a false sense of security. He glanced at Mark, who seemed captivated by the spectacle, his eyes wide with wonder and hunger.
I don't know, Mark, but something feels terribly wrong here.
The monstrous creature's desperate attempt to warn them echoed in his mind, fueling his suspicion. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had walked into a trap, a gilded cage where appearances were deceiving and beauty masked a terrifying truth. The air crackled, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that sent a shiver down Jake's spine. The beautiful beings, their smiles now gone, circled the platform, their movements taking on a predatory grace. Their eyes, once filled with warmth and compassion, now gleamed with a cold, reptilian hunger. The transformation was subtle, yet undeniable. Mark, oblivious to the danger, reached for a piece of fruit, his fingers brushing against the smooth, cold skin of one of the beings. A gasp escaped his lips, not of surprise, but of horror. The being recoiled, its hand withdrawing with lightning speed, revealing long, razor-sharp claws where delicate fingers had been moments before. The chamber echoed with a chorus of hisses, the air thick with the stench of musk and decay. The illusion shattered, the beautiful faces contorted into grotesque masks of hunger. Their true nature, hidden beneath a veneer of beauty, stood revealed. They were not saviors, but predators, and Jake and Mark were the intended prey. S1, what's happening? Jake roared, shoving Mark away from the table. The platters clattered to the floor, the exotic fruits and delicacies scattering across the platform, their sweet aroma now tinged with the bitter tang of fear. Panic surged through him, cold and sharp, as the creatures closed in, their movements no longer graceful, but swift and deadly. S1, run. Just when all hope seemed lost, a deafening roar shook the chamber. A hulking figure, its skin a sickly green, its eyes glowing with an eerie red light, crashed through the wall, scattering the beautiful beings like bowling pins. The monstrous creature from the forest, the very creature they had fled in terror, was now their unlikely savior. It fought with a primal fury, its long, gangly limbs smashing against the sleek forms of their attackers. The chamber echoed with the sounds of battle, the clash of metal against flesh, the shrieks of the creatures as they fell before the monster's wrath. Jake, stunned by the sudden turn of events, scrambled back to his feet, his mind struggling to comprehend the chaos unfolding around him. The monstrous creature, its body a mass of wounds, turned towards them, its glowing eyes filled with a desperate urgency. It gestured towards a darkened corridor, the only escape route in the chaos. S2. Chaos erupted, a whirlwind of flashing claws and desperate struggles. Jake fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal, his rifle a useless weapon against the speed and agility of their attackers. He caught a glimpse of Mark, his face pale with terror, being dragged towards a darkened alcove by two of the creatures, their eyes burning with a cold, predatory light.
Come on, Mark, this way.
Jake didn't hesitate. He grabbed Mark's arm, dragging him towards the corridor, the monstrous creature's roar echoing behind them as they fled the carnage. They didn't stop running until they were deep within the forest, the sounds of the battle fading into the distance. Exhaustion finally claimed them, their bodies collapsing beneath a towering oak, their chests heaving with the effort of their escape. As the adrenaline ebbed, the full weight of their ordeal crashed over them, leaving them trembling in the cold light of the rising sun. They were alive, but at what cost? The forest, once familiar and comforting, now held a sinister edge, its shadows harboring the memory of their encounter. The monstrous creature, their unlikely savior, had vanished into the night, leaving them with more questions than answers. Who was it? Why had it saved them? And what had become of the beautiful beings? Their true nature revealed in all its horrifying glory. As they made their way back to civilization, their clothes torn, their bodies bruised, they knew that their lives would never be the same. They had looked into the abyss, had seen the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of beauty, and the world, once a place of wonder and excitement, now felt like a stage for a grand, terrifying play, its actors hidden in plain sight. And in the silence of the forest, the monstrous creature's final roar echoed in their minds, a haunting reminder that appearances could be deceiving, and that sometimes the greatest horrors wore the most alluring masks. Their hunting trip had become a desperate fight for survival, a chilling testament to the fragility of life and the enduring power of fear. The experience would forever bind them together, a shared secret that would haunt their dreams and shape their waking hours. They had stared into the abyss, and the abyss had stared back.